But we begin tonight with America's path forward after last night's presidential election. Thank you so much for joining us for 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
And I'm Mike Duffy. Just a short time ago, Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the nation from the White House, where she said that she congratulated President-elect Trump and delivered a message of hope to her supporters.
The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
You can see how the presidential race played out here in Michigan, flipping our state from blue to red since the 2020 election. You see the razor-thin margins there. Now,
Dearborn was one of the major Michigan cities claimed by Trump. We've been covering the abandoned Biden-Harris campaigns for months, and you can see the impact that it had on vote totals, with Jill Stein taking more than 18% of the vote in Dearborn. 7 News Detroit reporter Tiara Braddock spoke to the founders of the Uncommitted National Movement as they shared their thoughts about the election results.
While they are two different groups, the main goal of the Uncommitted National Movement and the Abandoned Harris campaign is to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The two groups made sure their voices were heard during this election.
The only group that mobilized 101,000 voters to show up to the ballot box and raise their hand and say, "I need you to inspire me," was this group called the Listen to Michigan campaign, the Uncommitted National Movement, and we came out of that experience and made an offer to the vice president's campaign.
Abbas Alawi is the co-founder of the Uncommitted National Movement. The movement called for Michigan voters to vote uncommitted in the presidential primary election back in January. The goal being to put pressure on President Biden to put an end to the war in Gaza, which started back in October of 2023.
The entirety of our organizing anti-war voters, we heard from Democratic Party leaders say, hey, we sympathize with you, but it's got to wait until after the election, as if our families' lives were something that could just be put on hold.
Alawi says Democratic leaders did not listen to Arab or Muslim voters, and he feels that helped President-elect Donald Trump win.
In Dearborn, Michigan, Donald Trump has won the majority of votes. This was entirely avoidable. Another
group that was born out of the call to end the war is the Abandoned Harris campaign. It was originally the Abandoned Biden campaign before President Biden dropped out of the race. That group called for voters to vote for Green Party candidate Dr. Jill Stein.
We're here to support this community whose courage, whose moral conviction has really changed the dialogue, has really inspired and empowered Americans.
I sat down and spoke with Dr. Stein as she held her watch party in Dearborn on Election Day. She won 0.8% of votes in Michigan and 22% of votes in Dearborn.
It feels like we have won in terms of really launching a movement, really gaining incredible, unstoppable momentum.
I also spoke to political expert Aaron Call, who says this election shows just how significant the Arab-Muslim vote is.
And ultimately, it's going to be up for Donald Trump to deliver. I know that in some ways, I think some of the votes was kind of like a protest vote, just showing that the status quo is not working.
In Dearborn, Tiara Braddock, 7 News Detroit.
All right, thank you, Tiara.